वेलकम एवरीवन वेलकम टू आज का एपिसोड ऑन बजट की बात आई हैव विद मी मिस्टर विनीत सांबरे फ्रॉम डीएसपी म्यूचुअल फंड्स एंड ऑफ कोर्स वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट यूनियन बजट 2025 and what its impact is going to be on the markets. So we'll start with something that everybody was talking about before the budget, which was the capex number. How good was it? Is it good enough to sustain the growth that has been coming into India?
Clearly, I think when one is so I think let us go back a bit, Vishu. I think when we look at what the government had in front of them was to sort of achieve a very kind of a delicate balance between your fiscal discipline and also do whatever they could have done for pumping growth, which they have been sort of doing over the course of last 3 years. So I would say that when you and last 3 years were actually very strong when one is thinking about the capex. But when it comes to this year, I think given that last 3 years were very strong on back of that, not achieving what you had stated for or budgeted for in 25, and then on that low base achieving a 10% number, which is lower than your nominal GDP rate of growth, is definitely underwhelming. And and within that, if you break down the components broadly, roads and railways, where there has been not a great, I mean, there's no increase actually in terms of the budget number. So I would say those are sort of underwhelming and definitely will have sentimental impact because of a very simple fact that stocks have been pricing in higher growth. If you look at their assumptions of the analyst, the consensus is way high. The margin assumptions on high growth numbers are high. So all of this can actually again spiral down. Once if you the capex momentum doesn't sort of sustain, and it can have a reverse kind of a spiraling on the downside. Plus the valuations are high. So I would say that there is some risk which has come about. Let me also share one small perspective. I would believe that the way to sort of circumvent some of this very big sentimental negative which has popped up is maybe government can think about accelerating the pace of growth, which they have been sort of talking about. Let's say in a year, if they have to spend now 11 lakh crore, they can think of maybe front ending some of that and trigger a positive momentum. So I think there are ways and means, but on the whole, net, I would say this is underwhelming number and it's not going to be taken very positively, is what I feel.
Right, right, sir. And how about the fiscal deficit numbers? We have pegged it at 4.8% this year and 4.4% next year. Is this prudent enough? Is this good enough to balance the growth versus inflation equation, or is it tilting towards one more the other?
No, so I think definitely the job is not easy. It is a tough job. You have to strike a balance. Kahin to kuch, I mean, somewhere you will have to give up some things. But I think so. Today, let us also think about the context in which we are operating. We have a global worry. There's so much of uncertainty. World is going through a very different state of affairs, and nobody would have ever imagined. I mean, we were talking of US actually getting the interest down, and we have seen 100 bips rise in the US 10-year there. So I think it is very difficult to predict what's going to happen, and macros are definitely gone haywire everywhere. Most economies are actually seeing slippages in the fiscal numbers. So I would say from that perspective, when things are in a very uncertain environment, I would not blame that we are actually taking a very cautious approach. I would say that in the given context, I think it is okay that we are following that fiscal discipline. Maybe some bit of more on the capex would have been welcome, but nonetheless, I would say that it's not easy job, and at least on the fiscal side, given where we are as an economy and where the world is, I think it's a fair thing to actually do in terms of achieving those targets.
Right, absolutely, sir. So, getting to the meat of the topic that everybody is going to be talking about for a while now is the consumption side of the story. Of course, we've got tax ops where people don't have to pay taxes till 12 lakhs odd rupees. And then beyond that, also, we have further tax relaxations. A lot of things have been streamlined. Now, this brings out an entirely new side of the story, which was primarily capex led so far. Now, people are talking about a consumption led theme. How significant a pivot is this, and is this a pivot at all, or do you think this is just a side that was coming all along? First of all.
So I think a very simple one line answer from what has happened. The quantum is huge. It is not a small money. 1 lakh crore is a big sum, and so first of all, as far as the arithmetic is concerned, it is not that 1 lakh crore will lead to 1 lakh crore of consumption. Sentiments can actually lead to the numbers actually going overflowing what one is thinking. So I would say that first of all, creating this positive framework or sentiment is was required. Now, how this money is going to be used, whether it will be used to repay loans, whether it will be used for buying some assets, because this is a durable savings. This is not something which is a one-off. It is going to be a durable saving. So I think this is good. Uh, Pivoting from capex led to maybe consumption led, because they felt that having spent so much, they didn't see private sector coming up equally strongly. They didn't see consumption picking up so strongly. So they felt that might as well let us uh, take it on the other side. Let us provide some benefits to the consumer. And definitely, I would say that this is sentimentally positive. It will create more areas for growth as far as the consumption is concerned. Now we can debate what areas where exactly, but I would want to believe that this is going to create a positive environment as far as consumption is concerned, especially if you actually now just go through the last 3 years. You realize that in the first period the rural side was weak. In the second period, even the urban started weakening. Now this actually maybe was in a way alarming that something has to be done, and maybe they have taken the right step. Given the construct where we are, maybe it starts with the urban mid income kind of benefits which will flow in. Rural has their own ways and means. They are not directly correlated to all of this. They're, those spends which the government have been doing, and all the other policies will matter, and all these welfare schemes would matter more. But I think on the whole, I would say I want to believe that the next 1 or 2 years the consumption should uh, on a broad-based basis, rural, urban has to see some more action and growth. And this maybe is a good starting point, is what I can think about.
Absolutely. Getting a little sector specific. Now, this new story is primarily urban middle class led, the new story that's rolling out. Of course, there are schemes for and announcements for agriculture as well that will continue delivering on the rural demand. But this new emerging theme is primarily around the urban middle class, as I understand. Which sectors do you see this money flowing into?
So, as I said, I think, again, these are speculative and we are trying to assess ourselves. But let me say that what are the behaviors which we have seen over the course of last few years? And frankly, consumption wallet shares are also changing, and you must be recognizing all of that as you see your way of consuming and maybe your next generation way of consuming. So I think we have to keep all that in mind. But I think, let's say, from the first part, which is the FMCG per se. Now there are debates around FMCG. Anyways, is not something which is people want an additional if they have more money. It is almost like non-discretionary in nature, where you have to consume and you will not want to increase if you have an extra income. But I think there also there is a small bit of nuance that let's say if you had less income, were you going and buying low unit packs? I mean, versus you may want to have a higher pack. So people may be rationalizing those areas. And now, if you have additional income, you may want to go for full pack. So there is a possibility of volume increase. You may want to premiumize in your consumption. So I think that is one area. The second bigger area is that, let's say if somebody who is in that income bracket, who is going to save between 5,000 to 9,000 rupees, let's say per month, if you break it down, do you want to create asset where you are paying EMI, and you want to, let's say you can afford EMI up to 10, 15,000 rupees. You may want to buy a car, a two-wheeler, and all of those. So I believe that these are areas which potentially can see benefits flowing through. Beyond that, I think consumer durable in white good businesses all those companies should definitely see. I mean, when I'm saying all this, ACs, refrigerators, and all of those. So I would say that these are the broad areas of consumption which I believe should see benefits. And beyond that, I think the improving sentiments can lead to uh, people may be wanting to eat out more. So also, I think all the discretionary side of the story is something which should see the benefits. Now, the point is that we will have to monitor the quarterly numbers to see all these, all our beliefs and our thesis playing out. If it doesn't, then we'll have to readjust. But I think by quarter one or quarter two, we should start seeing the benefits of this, and maybe we'll have much more clarity once we see more traction around these segments.
Absolutely, sir. Sir, when we are talking about this new consumption side of the story, one more question that is cropping up in everybody's minds, every retail investor's mind, is whether they should rebalance their portfolio so as to get a bite of this new theme as well. Because at least for a while now, for the past few months now, a lot of investors have been heavy on the capex themes, be it defense sector. While PSU cannot be called a theme because it's too varied, but people favored PSUs in general, and that was the new growth story that was believed to be for this decade. Then there were capital goods companies. So now what has happened is right now, while the valuations they may still be a bit stretched, but at least because of the recent correction, they are at a slightly better valuations than they were 6 months back. Now, somebody who's right now has some money to invest, should they kind of take this opportunity in the capex theme, which has somewhat corrected right now and the valuations are slightly better than before, or kind of diversify their portfolio with this new consumption-led theme?
So, I believe that we are actually navigating very, complex and uncertain time period, and things are changing very fast. As I said, you may wake up with one thought process, and tomorrow one data point changes. You will still have a direct tax code coming up day after tomorrow, and I don't know whether things will remain the same or it will, lead adjustments to our thought process. So I would say in current environment where everything is so complex, uncertain, and fluid, it is better to go with diversified theme. We actually always, when we ourselves, when we talk to investors, we tell them that thematic funds are good, but you need to have exposures which are under as per your risk profile. It should be under your control. So basically the advice is that 5-10% of any specific theme as a depending upon your risk has to be, and so has to be part of your portfolio. Now if your portfolio is actually quite balanced, matured, and it does is not crossing those barriers, I would say that don't do anything, just stick around, think long term. Budgets have played their role, but these are very short term things in the long period of your investment horizon where your behaviors are going to matter more. So I would say that from that perspective, do not change if it doesn't warrant change. Yeah, but if it has got skewed significantly, you are just playing one theme, your risk has gone up. Definitely, it would warrant a change. Be more diversified. Be more think about slightly more longer term, and I think that is a way to go. While at the moment I would want to let's say have some bit of I'm thinking about some bit of higher allocation to consumption thinking. I mean, we are just trying to explore where one can look at. So definitely that consumption would warrant the our today mind share. But as I said, things are very difficult, and you are extremely right in saying that the valuations, because nowadays the price also reacts very quickly. It tends to get built into the price also very quickly. Valuations have come down. Now, as I said, tomorrow, let's say if the government were to expedite and front end all this capex, and suddenly there's a boom in the ordering because last year you had a small base, it can still create that momentum. So I think the stock market is a very different ball game. So I would say that be diversified, be under control, have your risk assessment done properly, have your exposures weighted properly, then it is fine, and then remain. So if even if it is, if you have a thematic fund which is under control, then it's okay. I mean, you can go through some short periods of underperformance, but that's fine.
Absolutely, sir. Sir, there were a number of other announcements were also made, which is as is every year done. For instance, we had something for nuclear energy, EVs. We had something for tourism sector. Then women empowerment was a theme. Any particular sectors or theme that come to your mind amongst this plethora of other announcements that retailers maybe should keep an eye on?
Yeah. So see, I think two or three directional thought process I was able to capture. One was, I think, anyways, they want to, they are trying to encourage the private sector, the state governments to start spending more. So, in what format, form, and shape it will come, we don't know. But I think that is one of the mindsets they are looking at. The other principal thought was that there is a thought in their mind to incrementally encourage ease of doing business. And some of the mentions in the budget around the, let's say the TDS, TCS, the decriminalization of rules which were anyways, had lost their appeal and all that. So I think those are to me, and then PLIs, which they had started. I believe that they should focus a lot more on the PLIs and manufacturing, because we can do a wonderful job. And there, I think the encouragement is important, because that will also build the private sector, that will lead to more employment. But anyway, I think those are the areas which I felt were relevant from the direction perspective, what they are trying to think. Beyond that, I would say that rural, while there were a lot of announcements, but a few like the Awas Yojana, Rural Awas Yojana, PMAY, and Sadak Yojana, and some of the Jal Jeevan Mission. Uh, I, I I feel that rural requires some more benefits to flow through, because rural is a massive number of people who can lift up the consumption overall, and they have been under stress for a while. I would say that from whatever the finance minister announced, we are just trying to pick up directionally what they want to sort of focus on. And to my mind, it came across that first of all they want to, as first announcement was on the tax benefit. So that anyways was kind of a reward to the honest taxpayer, which they laid out. Second, I think they stressed a lot on ease of doing business. That is important, because if you want to encourage private sector and encourage more of manufacturing, then the some of these measures will gradually prove useful, but incrementally they need to give more. They need to provide more. They need to have more PLIs, more manufacturing support. So that will lift up the whole manufacturing. It will improve the employment, levels, and it will lead to more consumption. So I think that is something which I felt is good, but needs more. Third, I would say that the rural side, in some form or fashion, the welfare schemes, the other, the Prime Minister Sadak Yojana, Gram Sadak Yojana, and all of those saw some money flowing through. And incrementally, how it gets utilized and how the velocity of that will matter. And I believe rural needs that support. They have been under pressure for some time, and if whatever more can be done can only be good and better, because it will lift the overall rural sentiments and cash flows. So all in all, I would say, and some of the things which you mentioned about the nuclear. So let's say, see, nuclear, I think it is slightly ambitious when you talk about 100 gigawatt. You are today at, I think, 7 or 8 gigawatt, very small in the overall scheme of things after so many years of independence. But I would say it is slightly tough also, because you need the capex spends are higher. The rules needs changes, because the claims which can come on the companies which are setting up those act needs some more relaxation. And then I think one can think about the acceleration in the pace of setting up of all those. Some of the EV related custom benefits, it will gradually see improvements, because I think incrementally we have seen that companies in the auto ancillary pack, they are trying to get into the battery ecosystem overall. So it will benefit. It's a small change, the custom duty change, but I think eventually it should benefit, and it is going to keep rolling over with a higher quantum gradually, because as your adoption increases, it will improve. So I think that is a good start. So I think all in all, that's what I believe broadly, if I want to summarize the thought process.
Right, right, sir. So moving beyond just this present budget, can you tell us what are some of the key themes developing in India that you see as potential that have good potential upsides? Something that retailers should watch out for, keep them in their watch list.
So, see, I would say that first of all, when we think about India as a country, I think where we can grow big and produce good results is manufacturing. And I genuinely believe government gave support to the electronic manufacturing, and I think a lot of good companies have come up. Uh, nice wealth creation has happened there, and they need to offer more in terms of they're talking of component PLI and all of those. I think those are going to only lift the game, and it's a new segment. I mean, suddenly we never had this semiconductor and all of this actually coming up, and those have come out as decent segments as far as we are concerned. The other area, actually, there is a budget inclusion also, but the point is the healthcare system in India, the hospitals. We have a good opportunity to attract medical tourism because our the quality of infrastructure is good. The private hospitals are using very automated, I mean, the latest machines to carry out the process and all that. And I think that is good. We can attract more foreign patients because anyways the cost of the healthcare services out there is pretty high. So we can provide them a low cost, good competitive way to sort of resolve. So I think that is one area which we are positive about. Overall, pharmaceutical, we have been positive because we believe that India has a competitive advantage when it comes to cost metrics out there. Beyond that, as we spoke about consumption. Even before the budget, we were actually thinking about consumption. I've been talking about consumption because I just felt that in terms of the cycles, they were in the low cycle. They were lying at the lower end of the demand curve, and whatever trigger could have lifted was something which was important. So this budget, in a way, is one of the important triggers. It can whether it can spiral and lead to much more. So I think consumption is a very broad category we need to dissect, but I think consumer is one more category which we sort of think about. And last, I agree is something which again is in the low cycle, and we have exposures to agri companies and agri businesses because we believe in the long term potential of India being a large player in the agri market because I think we are the second or third largest agricultural economy in the world. So I think those are the areas which broadly comes to my mind when it comes to the areas which we are sort of focused on.
Right, right, sir. Sir, before we conclude, if I could ask you for one advice for our viewers out there, it can be related to this budget or something that they should always take care of in their journey of investments. What would it be?
So see, actually, I happen to meet somebody who has been in the industry for long enough and veteran, managed global money, and I think he mentioned to me a very important line that money management is not business which is linked to your brain; it is linked to your stomach. So I think the ability to sustain the ups and downs is very very important. It is India. We are blessed to be in a country where growth is a factor which is going to be there for decades, and hence equity as a category is going to remain relevant and going to be a wealth creating category. But equity also comes with volatility, which we had not seen over the course of last 2 3 years, and which doesn't mean that it will not happen. It will happen, but one should have the stomach to sustain those volatility and keep moving ahead because there's still huge amount of opportunities to be tapped. But one just needs a lot of patience, temperament. I think behavior is going to be important rather than your IQ and your intelligence is what I want to summarize.
That's brilliantly put, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. And I hope you'll allow more such sessions in future as well.
Sure. Thank you so much, Vishu. It was nice interacting with you and to all your viewers. Wish them all a very happy new year.
Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all related documents carefully before investing.